Our mindfulness tip for this week is all about loving what is. And of course, we're borrowing that phrase from our good friend of the show, Byron Katie. And if you have not gotten her book, Loving What Is, I want to encourage you to get that because she's an amazing woman. And in it, she talks about having the mindfulness to take a step back and accept, first of all, what is going on around us. And in all of its fullness, and to understand what actually is happening instead of what it feels like it's happening, and then to be able to put that in perspective to see, is it the whole truth or is there more truth to it? She has something that she calls the work, that if something's really kicking your keister, and sometimes, for heaven's sake, there's something really kicking your keister, and she shows you how to go through a multi-step process to write it out, to say, okay, you know, whatever it is you're feeling, and then to look at it and go, first of all, is this true? And then there are a series of steps that you can do. You can go on her website, I think it's thework.com, to find out tips about how to do that. But I think you will be amazed at the difference that you feel afterwards. And sometimes it takes a little while to kick in. But even the last time we had her on the show, it was last year about this time of year, and it was right after Halloween. And like, it might be exactly a year ago this week. And Nancy had agreed to go through a bit of the work with Byron Katie, and the thing that Nancy was talking about was the fact that her plate was very full with a husband who was very ill and had been ill for a while, and with a child who was on the spectrum who has some challenges and was in those teenage years, and how overwhelmed she felt. And I will tell you that in the brief period of time that we had talking with Katie, it didn't get resolved, and you know, it was hard to watch because Nancy was in some pain and it didn't get resolved. What I feel bad about is that you guys didn't get to see that afterwards, and the day afterward, and in the 2 days afterward. It helped Nancy so profoundly, I believe, to get through what was coming, because within just a couple of short days, we found out that Reed was terminal, and he died on January 25th of this year. And I saw her be in a better place to deal with what was, because of that conversation with Katie. Although you don't get to see it in the interview, she's still in the pain, but I got to see the release of it. So, you know, first being able to take a moment and say, you know, what is. And I will tell you that for Nancy, that she did get to where she was like, oh, this is going to end, and that isn't good. That this place of where she was running ragged to be able to take care of both her husband and her son, that it was going to come to an end, and that there was a blessing in this moment where she still had him. And she deeply got to that appreciation of every single moment that she had left with Reed. And, you know, fortunately, we're not all dealing with that every day, but we're dealing with something. And sometimes it's, you know, equally real stuff. And if we can get to a point of accepting, okay, this is what is, but this isn't everything. This isn't every moment of my life. And that there are even blessings in this moment, no matter how hard that it is, it can really change our perspective of things. I was having a conversation with somebody this morning about a speaker that I heard. It was life-changing, in which he talked about your worst nightmare is somebody else's greatest dream. And it was on a day when and I think I've spoken about this before on the show, it was on a day when I just was miserable. My child had just been diagnosed with autism. I had a sink full of dirty dishes that I didn't want to face. You know, there wasn't money in the bank account to do what I wanted to do. And there was a nearby fire, and I just was like, right? But I went and heard this speaker, and he was saying about the thing that's kicking your keister is somebody else's greatest dream. And he said, you know, maybe you have a sink full of dirty dishes at home. And I was like, whoa, right? You know, having that really personal experience, I was like, he knows me. Because I think probably half the people that were there had a sink full of dirty dishes, right? It's not that uncommon. But in that moment, I was like, he's speaking to me. And he said, you know, when you think about it, there's somebody who's homeless who wishes that they had a sink full of dirty dishes. Because if they had a sink full of dirty dishes, it would mean that they had eaten and that they had a roof over their head and that they had running water. I mean, when you start to tear it down and go, oh my goodness, all the blessings that come with a sink full of dirty dishes, right? It doesn't mean that the bad stuff goes away, but it helps us to have a bigger perspective to say, okay, all right, I don't like doing dishes, but I can love what is. I've got a sink full of dishes and maybe they're not even going to get done, but I can love that I got a sink full of dishes, right? It doesn't negate the work that's there. So I really want to encourage everybody today to take a moment to really look at what is and find what the blessings are. We said that we were going to talk about the miracle of learning. Hopefully, I hope that you learned something while you were here today. I learned stuff. I learned all kinds of stuff. And every day that we get to learn is a miracle.